I noticed something pretty interesting after spending years watching how people deal with their money. A lot of part-time workers believe they simply can't save money, not because they're lazy, not because they're not trying, but because they're using a financial system that was designed for people with stable, predictable income. Think about it for a moment. If the money coming in changes every month, this week you get extra shifts. Next week, things slow down. Managing money starts to feel like trying to walk straight on a road that keeps changing shape. What most people don't realize is this. The problem for part-time workers isn't that they earn less money. The real problem is that their financial system isn't built for instability. And when the system is wrong from the start, even small money decisions start to feel more stressful than they should. What's interesting is that I've seen many people with part-time income still manage to build steady savings, not because they have extreme discipline, not because they cut every bit of enjoyment out of their lives, but because they understand one very simple principle. When income is unstable, the way you manage money has to be different. In this video, I want to share a few things I've noticed after watching many people in that exact situation. These aren't quick hacks, they're not get-rich strategies, they're just small shifts in the way people think about money. But those small shifts can make saving feel a lot easier. Main idea 1. Unstable income makes every money decision feel heavier. I noticed something subtle when watching people who work part-time. Their financial pressure doesn't only come from how much money they earn, it comes from uncertainty. A simple example. Someone with a fixed monthly salary can usually look at their bank account and have a pretty clear sense of where they stand. But for someone working part-time, this week might be okay. Next week, there might be fewer shifts. Next month, there could be extra work. When the near future feels unclear, the brain naturally becomes more cautious, and that creates an interesting psychological effect. Every spending decision, even a small one, comes with a quiet question in the back of your mind. Will I need this money later? When that question shows up too many times, people tend to drift into one of two extremes. Either they become overly anxious and avoid spending anything, or they give up trying to control it and start spending emotionally because managing it all feels exhausting. What most people don't realize is this. The problem isn't their ability to manage money. The problem is that they're trying to apply the mindset of someone with stable income to a completely different situation. What's interesting is that people who manage money well in this situation don't try to force their lives to look like someone with a fixed paycheck. They accept that their cash flow sometimes rises and sometimes slows down. And instead of fighting that, they build a style of spending that is a little more flexible, a little slower, and with a little more cushion. Just that small shift in perspective can make many money decisions feel a lot lighter. Main idea 2. Many people don't actually have a money problem. They have a spending rhythm problem. I noticed something interesting when observing how people spend money. Most financial advice focuses on one question: how much are you spending? But for part-time workers, a more important question is, when are you spending it? It sounds similar, but it's actually very different. Here's a simple, everyday example. Someone picks up a few extra shifts during the week. Their bank balance suddenly looks a little better. The brain immediately creates a familiar feeling. I've got extra money right now. And that's when small decisions start appearing. Eating out a little more often, ordering convenience food, buying a few things they had been postponing. Each purchase feels reasonable on its own. But here's the interesting part. Part-time income usually arrives in small waves. Spending, on the other hand, can easily turn into habits that last much longer. What most people don't realize is this. Just a few weeks of spending based on the feeling of having money right now, and when a slower week arrives, financial pressure comes back almost immediately. Not because they spend an extreme amount, but because their spending rhythm doesn't match their income rhythm. People who manage money well in this situation usually do something very simple. When more money comes in than usual, They don't immediately change their lifestyle. Life continues exactly like the previous week. Any changes, if they happen at all, only happen after enough time has passed to be sure the higher income is actually stable. This creates a powerful psychological effect. Weeks with higher income don't automatically become weeks with higher spending. Instead, they quietly become weeks where a cushion is built for the future, and that cushion is what helps many part-time workers finally feel like they truly have control over their money. Main idea 3. Feeling financially comfortable can sometimes be more dangerous than feeling broke. I noticed something paradoxical when observing money behavior. Many people think the most dangerous moment financially is when money starts running low. But in reality, the moment when people lose control most easily is often when everything feels fine. A simple example, work has been fairly steady for a few weeks. Money coming in isn't huge, but it's not bad either. Life starts to feel a little smoother. You don't have to think as hard about every purchase. And that's when small lifestyle shifts quietly appear. A coffee every morning, a few more meals out during the week, a couple of small convenience purchases to make life easier. Each one is tiny, and because they're tiny, they rarely get noticed. What most people don't realize is this: small lifestyle upgrades often happen when pressure goes down, not when pressure goes up. The human brain has a very natural tendency. When things feel stable, we loosen discipline just a little, not because we're irresponsible, but because the brain always tries to move life toward greater comfort. The problem is that part-time income rarely stays stable long enough for those lifestyle upgrades to be safe. And when a slower period arrives, those new expenses don't disappear. They've already become habits. What's interesting is that people who manage money well in this situation don't force themselves to live extremely frugal lives. They simply do one thing differently. Whenever life starts feeling a little easier, they don't rush to upgrade their lifestyle. They wait. They wait to see if that stability is actually real and lasting. That waiting period is what quietly protects them from many financial mistakes that most people only notice when it's already too late. Main idea 4. Small amounts of money are often ignored, but they're usually what determines whether you save or not. After years of watching how people handle their money, I noticed something interesting. A lot of people believe that in order to save, they first need a large amount of money, a higher paying month, a better job, or a period where their income becomes more stable. But here's the interesting part. People who eventually build savings rarely start with large amounts. They usually start with money so small that most people overlook it. A very simple example. Someone working part-time may not be able to save hundreds of dollars every month, but they often have moments like these. A week where they spent less than expected. A small amount of money that wasn't used. A few extra shifts they didn't plan for. These amounts fall into a strange psychological zone. They're not big enough to feel like real savings, but they're also not small enough to be meaningless. And because of that, they tend to disappear very quickly. A slightly nicer meal, a small convenience purchase, something unplanned but easy to justify. What most people don't realize is this: saving doesn't begin when you start making more money. Saving begins when your brain starts seeing small amounts as something worth keeping. What's interesting is that once someone starts holding on to these small amounts of money, a powerful psychological shift happens. The brain begins to realize something important. Oh, I'm actually capable of keeping money. That feeling of control matters far more than the actual dollar amount. And over time, that feeling is what allows small savings to slowly grow into something bigger, not because of extreme discipline, but because of one small change. You stop treating small amounts of money as if they don't matter. Main idea 5. Financial pressure doesn't come from the amount of money. It comes from how often you have to think about money. I noticed something that people rarely talk about when discussing saving money. Financial stress doesn't always come from not having enough money. Often, it comes from having to think about money too many times during the day. Here's a familiar example. In the morning, you think, should I eat out today or eat at home? At lunch, you think again, should I order something extra? Later in the afternoon, should I buy the thing I've been wanting? At night, did I spend too much this month? Each question is small, but when those questions repeat dozens of times every day, the brain starts to get tired. And when people get mentally tired, their ability to make good decisions starts to decline. What most people don't realize is this: the worst money decisions usually don't happen because we lack knowledge. They happen because we're too mentally exhausted to keep thinking carefully. That's when people say things like, whatever, I'll just treat myself today. Or, it's not that much money anyway. What's interesting is that people who manage their money well aren't the ones constantly analyzing every purchase. Instead, they try to reduce how often they have to think about money. A very simple example: some people set small personal rules like only eating out on certain days or only buying personal items during a specific time each month. These rules aren't meant to restrict life. They exist to reduce the number of decisions. When the number of decisions goes down, mental energy is preserved. And when that energy is still available, people naturally make much better financial decisions. Main idea 6. Sustainable saving doesn't come from motivation, it comes from systems. After observing people's financial behavior for many years, I noticed something very clear. Most people who want to start saving begin with the same thing: motivation. One day they suddenly feel like they need to change. Maybe their bank account is running low. Maybe they faced an unexpected expense. Or maybe they simply feel it's time to manage their money better. During the first few weeks, things usually go very well. Spending is under control. Money starts being set aside. A sense of progress appears. But here's the interesting part. Motivation almost always fades over time, not because people are weak, but because life inevitably brings periods of fatigue, stress, or busyness. And when those periods appear, financial plans based purely on willpower often start to fall apart. What most people don't realize is this: people who manage to keep money consistently over many years rarely rely on motivation. They rely on systems. For example, some people set up automatic transfers to savings whenever income arrives. Some keep only a limited amount of spending money in their main account. Others create very simple personal rules to reduce daily decision-making. These systems are not perfect, but they have one powerful advantage. They don't depend on your mood, even during busy months. Even when you don't have much mental energy to think about money, the system keeps working, and over time, these small systems quietly build financial stability. I've noticed that when people talk about money, they often look for big strategies: how to earn more, how to save faster, how to reach financial freedom sooner. But for people with unstable income, a different question matters much more. Not, how do I move faster, but how do I stay on the road? Stability may look slow, but stability has a unique power. It allows small habits to exist long enough to finally start producing real results. If you're working part-time or dealing with irregular income, don't try to fix everything at once. Pick the smallest change from this video and try it for a few weeks. Sometimes one small shift is enough to completely change the way you think about money. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. We'll keep exploring the psychology of money and how people actually behave with money in everyday life. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.